We breaking bread, yeah. We breaking bread, yeah. We breaking bread, yeah. One conversation at a time. We breaking bread, yeah. We breaking bread, yeah. We breaking bread, yeah. One conversation at a time.
The Breaking Bread Village.
One conversation at a time.
The Breaking Bread Village.
One conversation at a time.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Breaking Bread Village. I'm really excited to have the conversation today that we are about to have. We have Bradley on today, and I'm going to just bring him on so he can introduce himself because he can do it better than I can. So let me bring him on now.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Aaron. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm really excited.
Awesome. If you want to just kind of give a little bit of introduction about who you are.
Sure, no problem. So this funny accent that I have is from a city called Tshwane, Pretoria, South Africa. But I now live in California, in Southern California, in Ventura County. And I was a freedom fighter within Nelson Mandela's militant organization at that time called Umkhonto weSizwe, which means also short MK, which means the spirit of the nation. And I had a small role to play in fighting for freedom in South Africa.
Awesome. Well, I'm so happy that you came on today. I'm really excited to just get started with this conversation because I've always been so intrigued with, apartheid and just South African culture and the different things that people have had to go through. And as we'll talk about today, it's a lot of similarities that's going on right now in America. So matter of fact, we could just get started with that. I'm talking about some of the similarities between, the apartheid and what's happening right now in America. Share your thoughts with me because I know that you have a lot in regards to because you are kind of seeing both. So tell me a little bit about it.
It's so like I said, I grew up in South Africa, so I knew who MLK was, who Malcolm X was, and who Emmett Till was, and but I didn't really know who they were. I knew of them by reputations as being these courageous men that fought for to break down racial barriers in across the United States. So my version of the United States when I grew up in South Africa was we had apartheid sanctions placed against South Africa, and I think it was by Reagan. And my idea of America was B.A. Baracus from the A-Team and Dallas and Dynasty and Cosby Show. So, I didn't really know much. All I knew was, if the Cosbys could live like this, then, America must be the land of the free.
Yes.
And the brave, So when I met Theo Huxtable, Malcolm Jamal Warner many years ago when he came to South Africa, that's actually how I ended up coming to the US. But I'll get into that later. But
okay,
what I'm getting at is that the similarity with where the United States is domestically handling, political tension and domestic political tension and uprising, within response to the George Floyd murder and within response to the Breonna Taylor and countless other Black American citizens that have been killed during police brutality. The way the government is responding to that is very similar to apartheid South Africa during the height of the state of emergency. And the playbook is very similar, because what the architects of apartheid in South Africa did was they used a similar playbook to what the neo-Nazis used, and the Gestapo used in controlling mass amounts of people through segregative policing and militarized enforcement. And that's what, the U.S. government, the federal government, has been ramping up to do here in the U.S. Yeah, so it's pretty shocking. Considering that we've had our first black president in this country, and policies towards black people in the United States, especially when it comes to police brutality, is just unhinged.
Yeah. So I know that you mentioned, how you knew of MLK, you knew of Malcolm. When did you learn the differences between them? Because, I know it kind of, sometimes people don't understand the policies and the way they kind of moves, because they moved a little bit different at different times in their life.
Totally. We have a good example of that in South Africa, I guess. Different radicalized political groups, etc. But what I knew of MLK, with talking about bringing the light in, and the light's going to push away all the darkness. That's similar to how Tata Madiba, which is President Nelson Mandela's tribal name was Madiba, and Nelson Rolihlahla, which meant the trouble causer. Madiba's middle name that his grandfather, I think, gave to him was the troublemaker. And but the similarities between those two freedom fighters are very similar. But yeah, South Africa was a very difficult and has a very painful history where extreme violence and a dirty war was fought, and I just happened to be a part of that. And I'll jump back and sort of talk about how the architects of apartheid in South Africa educated us, because so racism is such a volatile subject. But in my experience, I was taught racism. So in South Africa, we were educated at school about the swart gevaar, which means the black danger, which meant because we were white. The South African conservative government told us that black people and people of color would chase us into the ocean. And I remember the architect. Yeah, I remember the architect of apartheid, Verwoerd, was assassinated, and just before or around about the same time, the Mau Mau had been up in Kenya, had a tribune up in Kenya had been involved with fighting against white folks there, and I remember, to scare us, it will scare our I wasn't alive, but I've heard this, to scare our parents and grandparents. They showed pictures of white people's hands cut off. I don't want to talk about gruesome stuff here, but that's how they indoctrinated us, was to show us that, and then show us the assassination of Verwoerd, the architect of apartheid, and then show us why we need to segregate and keep black people in check in South Africa. So at school, once or twice a week, we used to dress in little brown shorts and a similar collared shirt like this, but it was brown. It was like a mini army outfit. And they used to teach us how to march, and they used to teach us how to fight, and they used to teach us how to prepare our minds to get ready to go to military later on and to uphold white privilege and white power in South Africa. So that's what I was taught. But my life took a drastic turn in a different direction when at 17 I was going to visit my mother, and I stumbled onto a massacre that was being perpetrated by a skinhead Nazi white nationalist walking around and executing black people on the square.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's
so yeah, paint that picture for me, like where you were. I mean, you were just 17 years old, teenager, minding your business. What was going on that day? Kind of paint a picture for me.
Exactly. So, I caught the train into town, into the capital of Pretoria, and then I walked from the train station down into the center of town to the State Theatre where my mother worked. And we were going to go watch a ballet performance. And I was crossing the square, and, out in the streets of Pretoria, South Africa, then, you'd see these young black kids coming from the township with their eyes open wide at the big buildings and stuff, because they lived in rural communities because of segregation. And, there were just different folks out on the plaza that day, sitting, having lunch and having a nap, just to get off their feet for a little bit. And this white guy was walking around with his camouflage outfit, and he looked like a branch which in the South African police during apartheid was called the Security Task Force, and he looked like one of these members. So I thought he was catching a terrorist or a bad person, and because I lived behind my picket white fences with my security systems, and I didn't think that there was bad stuff happening in the townships, because we were TV was censored. But so I saw him walk up to these people just sitting there and started shooting people, and it was and then I came to the realization that he's not obviously looking for bad people. That was a lady that helped bring me up. My nanny growing up, it looked just like her. I had empathy, and she used to sing me songs, as I used to sit on her back.
So you had a black African nanny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. My mom was a businesswoman, and I was raised by a black woman, Elizabeth Molakena.
Oh, okay. In research and just watching different things throughout my lifetime, I've always been really just in awe of that, because a lot of times in places where people are taught to hate the very thing that, like you said, raised them or took care of them, or even sometimes in some cases breastfed them and everything. So
yeah. Well, wow. Lizzie didn't breastfeed me, although I wouldn't have minded the breastfed babies are healthy.
Yes.
But you know what? I am the product of that very woman. Because she taught me empathy. She taught me kindness. She taught me Ubuntu, humility and caring and love. But her and my parents, I was fortunate that, that my parents, just raised me right.
Yeah.
What it boils down to. So, I witnessed this awful massacre, and, there was this young chap who I referred to as Kind Eyes, who called me over, and I hid behind a bench with him, and we both looked over the wall and saw this guy continue and shooting more innocent black people, and eventually Kind Eyes jumped up, chased after him, ran around a corner, and was going to try and take this madman with a gun down, and Kind Eyes turned around and he shot him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this guy turned and shot Kind Eyes, and as I came around the corner, I took Kind Eyes' head and I put it on my lap, and yeah, it was a very difficult and very dark situation, and for years I couldn't talk about it. Man.
Yeah, just to process all of that. Yeah, to process all of it at 17.
No, it was tough for not only me, all those countless other people on that square that lost grandmothers, brothers to some crazed white dude that. And then this guy, had the audacity to tell me, "Ek doen dit vir jou toekoms. I'm doing this for your future, for white future white." The white man in South Africa, and but it's so I learned that my white privilege is very complicated, and so I managed to go see Kind Eyes afterwards. I went to the hospital, etc., and then but lost touch with him, and just ended up having this blue scrapbook with a newspaper article, and this young man's head on my lap, and that's the only thing that I sort of shuddered to look at when I looked at it now and again, and I had to bring up all those thoughts because I try to push them away.
Oh yeah,
it was too painful. Yeah, and I discovered that was PTSD. So
yeah, but you went on to write this book. I want to talk about your book just for a second, because this is what led to it. Yeah, show it. A bestseller over in South Africa, correct?
Yeah. So this was the book's only been out for a year now, but it's a bestseller in South Africa. This over there is Major General Jeremy Veery. That is Neil de Beer, Andre Lincoln, and myself. But these two guys, these two black guys, this one was on Robben Island with Nelson Mandela. And he was part of his intelligence unit. And but those guys saved my life because, I dropped out of school afterwards.
Oh,
I got
sure.
with the wrong crowd, and those two black guys said to me, "Hey, do you want to do some good in this world? And we'll teach you how to spy for us. We need somebody who looks like white like you and like a Nazi, and we need you to help infiltrate some of these proxy groups." And that's what they were using as part of their assassination and hit squads, and they planned to poison water supply to 300,000 people in township.
Oh wow, that sounds like what they did right here in Michigan, in Flint, Michigan. I mean, it's the same. Yeah, it's the same type of thing, which is so sad and unfortunate. So tell me a little bit about your relationship with the African National Congress. Kind of tell me a little bit how you got involved with that.
Well, it was, initially I started working with a group of guys where we looked after all the nightclubs and wealthy people in South Africa. This is in the late 80s.
Okay.
And, when Depeche Mode was playing, and, Grace Jones was, the hot thing on the cassette tapes. But we had the security company looking after people that used to come to South Africa. We had a bunch of South African white men are very highly trained because there's compulsory military service. A lot of them are very efficient at bush warcraft, at sabotage, and being soldiers, etc. And so we had this outfit of guys, but I didn't know that this company was actually a front for the South African intelligence services.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I purely by incident, and this is before the ANC recruited me, by the way. So
Gotcha. Okay, so you had no idea what you were. You just thought you were working. Okay. That's so interesting.
Yeah, I found out the hard way when I got shot in my arm.
Oh,
So,
gracious.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
But yeah, the apartheid security apparatus was very complex and very efficient at what they did, and there's like I said, it was to fight for people so that they could have the freedom to vote in South Africa.
Yeah.
So the fight's a little different here in the US. If you compare it, we need to deconstruct institutional racism here in the United States. With back then, we were just trying to at least get the votes. At least here in the US, we can go out and vote, and hopefully people vote smart. And yeah.
Oh yeah. Wow. It's really interesting to me because you kind of were not forced into a certain life, but because of events that took place, it kind of opened your eyes to, well, it seems like it opened your eyes to a lot of things. And it's very interesting to me too, because being raised and being taught within the school system to hate Black people, basically, and to, this whole idea of, you have to get strong, you have to learn how to fight because it's going to be this war and you have to preserve your white, lineage and privilege. To be taught that every day in the school system is a very interesting concept, but it is very similar at times to the ideologies that are here in the U.S. in a more subtle way. It's a little bit more subtle, in comparison. Do you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. It really can be addressed through humility.
Mm-hmm.
And it really can be addressed through just having a conversation, and it doesn't have to be the difficult conversation, as somebody was saying to me the other day. It doesn't have to be a difficult conversation. Just have a conversation with, hey, am I allowed to call you Black? That's
right.
not right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right there. And hey, just tell me about a bit about yourself. Like, I know people that have had horror stories, of Black guys that have had horror stories in their lives by just being constantly harassed and picked on. So it's and it still carries on, and here we are in 2020. So but learning more and more about American about the civil rights movement in America, and about the Black man's struggle to be able to live in a place that you can actually call the land of the brave.
Because you talked about that, the land of the brave, the land of the free. And, it's really interesting, as we discussed earlier, prior to our live, a lot of times people don't really believe that everybody does not have the same freedoms. When you have those conversations with people who are non-Black or, non-brown, sometimes people will argue with you because they believe that because the Constitution says something like that, or because, they've created this idea that all people are created equal and have the same opportunities. They believe that because I really think that sometimes it's because they have not been touched by the
pain.
Yes. So what do you say to that? I mean, because, for you, go ahead. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
And the hate. Yeah.
Yeah, and so people think that you're making it up, or that is, just all in your mind, and or like a cop out or a crutch. But there are some things that are just not afforded to everybody, and every as you grew up. I mean, watching that firsthand, but then coming here to America, you see it now. And I want to kind of talk about you being a freedom fighter, because that's really awesome to me as well. How did you get into that? Because again, being raised with this type of mindset that you're supposed to hate people, not like people that look different than you. How did you get into freedom fighting? And I know your nanny probably helped with some of that, in seeing that example, or one person that you saw that showed you love. But tell me how you got into that.
Yeah. Elizabeth helped install in me empathy, kindness, humility, and love, and so did my mother. And but while I was caught up with the wrong bunch of people, I was told to go and snatch this guy out of his house. So we went and we kicked his door down in the middle of the night, and we kidnapped him, and we pulled him out of his bed. His wife jumped on me, tried to claw my eyes out, and we put him in a car and we took him to a safe house. And we were going to interrogate this black man, and he turned to me and he said to me, "I can see you're a big guy. You can hurt me. You can do whatever you want to do to me." And something in him ignited in me. He reminded me of kind eyes. And then he taught me, and then he spoke to me rather, and told me everything that we're in essence discussing here today. That this is not your fault. You were taught to be a racist. You went to school, in your school system. They subconsciously, and consciously, they are teaching you to prepare to fight and oppress me as a black man. And then I turned around and said, but there's something that me and the African National Congress, this guy just come back from Russia. He had just been trained by the KGB to be a senior intelligence official. He had just come back, and he said, but let me tell you one thing, there's something called the Freedom Charter, which is like the Constitution.
Okay.
That there's a place for every tribe in South Africa. And we consider the white man a tribe as well. Like, I'm proud to be a white guy. I've got no problem, with that. And he said, there's a place for you. Because South Africa is a melting pot of so many different rich cultures. I don't know if you knew we have 11 official languages in South Africa.
No, I did not know that.
From Xhosa to Tswana to isiZulu to Shangaan, Afrikaans. There's people from India. There's the Khoisan, the original tribe in South Africa, who speak Afrikaans like the Dutch settlers speak. So, he said there's a place in South Africa for everybody. But what we need to do is we need to stop standing on the backs of black people to further ourselves. What we need to do is we need to lift everybody and collectively come up and create a new South Africa for everybody. And that really moved me. And it was my big come to Jesus moment. It was my my awakening and awareness that, okay, this is something righteous. You can actually do something wonderful here. And we stayed in touch. We told the apartheid guys that we had recruited him as an asset, but we became double agents, and we joined the then it was still called a terrorist organization.
Oh wow.
Congress, one man's freedom fighters, another man's terrorists. So it's
Yeah.
and
Wow.
I never felt prouder because I knew that constantly. I knew that I was very unhappy. I was very dark. I was very depressed. Things were very rough. There was a lot of violence, a lot of anger around us, and pain. And but now I saw that light at the end of the tunnel, and I was like,
Yeah.
go in that direction. Try and we ended up doing some remarkable stuff under the incredible leadership of Jonah Klala and Jeremy Very and Andre Lincoln and people like Charles Naklala and the brave leadership of Nelson Mandela,
Yeah.
and one of my heroes, Chris Hani.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so amazing because you kind of play both sides of it, right? That's what I'm hearing. You kind of play both. How was that very how do I want to say it? Was that conflicting for you doing that type of work?
Big time. It was well, actually, when I was recruited into the African National Congress, I like I said, I felt as though I had a pure and a genuine path now. I felt that I'd found my calling, and that was to deconstruct and this apartheid state security apparatus, and I just played a little part because at that stage, like I said, they were planning to poison water, the water of 300,000 residents in a segregated township, called Soweto, and they planned to go massacre and murder people in Shushanguve, a small little township outside Pretoria. And but they were using white nationalists, the right wingers, inspired and formed on like the Nazis.
Wow. It's just so much to unpack there. So much to unpack. I mean, just the idea that, and I guess the only solace you could take from that is knowing that you are helping to dismantle something. I mean, despite how you had to kind of go about it, to be able to fight against that is a beautiful thing because it's necessary, and to be able to kind of try to stop things before they take place. And I know it's a lot of stuff. I have a lot of questions that I would love to ask, but I know it's a lot of things that you can't talk about because of the type of work that you.
What was very difficult was when I was undercover. So what Jeremy Very and Andre Lincoln did was they instructed me to go and infiltrate this organization, which was called WAM, World Apartheid Movement. They fall under the right wing element of these right wing groups in South Africa that the government used to do all their dirty work. And the most painful thing, so that I didn't blow my cover, was having to just witness the cruelty and and know of the plots, etc. But I could take that information, fortunately, and I could pass it on to my handlers within Umkhonto Wesizwe, the spear of the nation.
Wow. So many questions. But I know that you ended up having to flee from South Africa, correct?
Yeah. So eventually those bastards found out, and but thank God, Andre Lincoln told us that we needed to get out, and but
so you got a warning ahead of time that
we got a warning that ahead of time, but they came by and they tried to take us out. They tried to shoot us with the AK-47 and a big shiny silver 44 Magnum, which was like, it's in retrospect, it was quite a visual, but you know, it was terrifying. So, you know, but they, you know, I don't know if you and your listeners know, but South Africa is one of the most dangerous and violent countries in the world, and you know, its gang problem is terrible. Its unemployment problem's terrible. Its crime problem's terrible, and you know, so they have big gangs, like really dangerous gangs, like the equivalent of the El Salvadorians, you know, and like real bad bangers, and these and they used these guys to come and try and kill us. So we had to sneak out of the country, and we snuck into Swaziland to Eswati and got on a plane and, you know, got out of there. And then I was fortunate to come back a few years later.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, well, there was a plot to assassinate Mandela, and you know, this unit inside Umkhonto weSizwe, which is called DIS, Department of Intelligence and Security, managed to figure out that there was a plot to assassinate Mandela at his inauguration.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there would have not been no Rainbow Nation, you know, and it would have been a very different South Africa.
Wow.
Different South Africa. But, you know, so, you know, it's been an interesting journey. And then, you know, I've just kept a low profile for many, many years. And I just started writing my book and taking notes and, you know, just writing all the stuff down like reports and, you know, just saving them and then figuring out how to type. And so if you're out there and you want to write, just start writing. Just, you know, I never thought that I'd be a best-selling author out of South Africa. Never.
I mean, it's a very interesting story. I definitely plan to get the book to read it. Do you feel any fears now? I mean, because you kind of, like you said, you kind of lay low, and now you're back in the spotlight, so to speak. Do you have any fears associated with that?
Yeah, you know, it's I'll tell you what it boils down to. My problem that I have, and my biggest enemy that I have, is racism. As I don't care if it's just racism towards humanity or towards a human.
Sure.
And lack of empathy. That's my problem. When people you know, escalate and use violence, that's what I've committed my life to since I saw Kind Eyes getting murdered on that square. And you know, there's and like I said, you know, racism is a powder keg word. You know, it can just go up in flames. You know, and it's very personal to me because, you know, when I was in South Africa in 2018, I was there making a documentary with this a great company called Sound of Films. We were in South Africa and trying to track down the massacre, guy that committed the massacre, perpetrated the massacre, find him, etc. I was on my own personal redemption mission to find the names of the people that died at the massacre, because I remember a flash seeing their faces and them falling and seeing faces and pictures afterwards, but I never knew who they were. So it was my mission to do that. To archives, I went with this documentary crew, and we went to go and try and figure it out and track them down. And while I was there, my brother-in-law was murdered on our family's farm in South Africa.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And you know, what ended up happening was I spoke in complete and utter disappointment about my African National Congress, the very party that, you know, I went and fought for, and how they had let South Africa down and how they'd let crime and corruption take over,
Yep.
and how things haven't been addressed. But in South Africa, there's this agenda called the white genocide, and talking about a white genocide in South Africa. And I don't want to use that word. To me, everybody is a victim of crime in South Africa, and that's what the issue was. And but it's also it boils down to the social economical fallout and consequences of this poverty that wasn't addressed,
right?
And putting money and resources in the right place. And politics is a dirty thing.
Oh yes.
We just the messenger. We just give the politicians their intel and their information, and they're supposed to make the smart decisions. But when all else fails, I guess we need to stand up and fight for our rights. So,
yeah.
But sadly, my brother-in-law was murdered, and the system in South Africa has failed. Has failed him. Has failed so many other people. Police can't and don't have the resources to prosecute criminals. And the person that actually was involved in my brother-in-law's murder is actually getting off because of incompetence within the South African police. So it's very personal to me. It's very, very personal, and people will turn around and say to me, "Hey, I see you always fighting for black people, standing up for black people. Why don't you stand up for white people?" Sorry, the first thing somebody said to me, "Why do you keep standing up for black people in South Africa? Why don't you stand up for that George Floyd guy?" And I went out and I went to my first ever.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. Yeah, protesting in LA. Tell me about it.
So I guess this is why you want me on TV, so you can talk about my pain. But it's really messed up because my 10-year-old daughter, I say to her, "Hey, I just saw this white cop in Minneapolis put his knee on a black man's neck while the black man was saying that he couldn't breathe, and I saw this cop rocking his leg back and forth, putting the pain on this man, squeezing every breath out of him." And then that's
like, I have to do something.
Yeah, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go try and do something about that.
So you go to the protest. You're in LA.
So I tell my daughter, we need to go out there. We need to do this. And she says, "Daddy, what about you getting in trouble with the police?" And I said, "My love, we need to stand up when we can. We need to do something. It's our constitutional right. It's our right as fellow human beings to stand up and fight against hatred." So the last minute, I decided not to take my daughter. Long story short, I go to the George Floyd Black Lives Matter march at the end of May on the Saturday in the Fairfax district. I go meet the Black Lives Matter march organizers. We marched on 3rd Street, and the organizers are speaking. There's just so many diverse people from all over this greater Los Angeles area. All these Angelinos came out to fight this police brutality or stand up against it. And while we were marching down, I saw. Now I can't talk about this in too much detail because I have legal
Yeah.
Pending litigation, and on my advice of my attorney, I can't talk too much about this, but the synopsis is that I walked towards a skirmish line. I saw the very same people running from gunshots and from gunfire towards me that I saw in my head when I was 17 years old.
Wow.
Terrified people. But this time they were black and they were white and they were colored and Hispanics, Angelinos were running towards me terrified. And I saw a police officer beating the hell out of this black woman who was lying on the ground. I put myself in between the cop beating her, managed to lift her up and hand her to some other protesters that pulled her over this hedge to pull her away from danger. As I did that, I tried to retreat from the police skirmish line, and I was hit across the chest with a police baton.
Mm-hmm.
And then another policeman stepped forward and shot me from a few feet away in the testicles with a rubber bullet.
Oh my goodness! A few feet away. Wow.
Yeah. So
in my interpretation, that was purposely done to ensure that you were pained.
Yeah. They were putting the hurt on. I'm not gonna. And the very thing that I went to go fight against is what happened to me. But there's a lot of other people that are a lot worse off than I am. But the what I saw on that day, I saw people putting their hands up. Not obviously, not all the cops are bad. There's just bad apples in there, and but that's one of the things we need to address. We need to address the police unions. The police unions are probably the biggest problem because they tie the hands of the police departments that want to get rid of the bad apples, but they can't.
Okay. Because I wanted to ask you about that, because that's a lot of things that have been said in regards to protests, and especially people who are not there. When they see these images of police officers, spraying rubber bullets, gassing people, their go-to is always, well, they weren't peacefully protesting, or they were, agitating. What was your experience there? Because from what I've heard from a lot of people who were on the scene, not just there, but just all over the nation during these protests, was that it's a lot of, moms and kids and, and of course,
and young teenagers that are coming out, because this is America. This is a great country that has a lot of opportunity. But you still, putting your knee on the black man's neck and squeezing the life out of him. Come on.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that, it's this idea that, for me, and I guess I'll ask you this question and get your take on it. For me, I feel like there are a lot of people who would not normally protest or not normally kind of make these outcries, that right now are realizing that some things that, Black people in America have been saying for forever, I think they're starting to see, like, wow, this is really true, and I think something kind of ignited within them to say, I have to help. I have to say something.
Yeah, not enough. Can't carry on like this. And the craziest thing is that, I come from that world.
Exactly.
Law enforcement, military, paramilitary culture, and that world. I understand. I study domestic terrorism. I teach people, after my experience on witnessing a massacre, how to deal with active shooters and how to protect your community. And,
right.
But this code of secret, the secret code, the thin blue line code within the police community, where snitches get stitches stuff, it's not fair, it's not ethical, it's not humane, and it's not That's not what we do. We serve our communities. If you're angry and you don't want to, and you want to put some hurt on, go fight in the UFC, man. Go, go
Right.
WWE or whatever you want to do, or
Right.
go dig holes and trenches. Get your anger out there. I don't
Yeah,
know.
find a way, find a way. I do want to make sure that we put this up for you. I know you have a GoFundMe going on right now to help out with legal funds and also repair, because I mean that's a lasting.
Yeah, and not to diminish it at all, but the rude reality is that after I was shot in the testicles, I lost a lot of blood. I actually thought I was going to die on the streets of LA.
Oh my goodness.
My scrotum was cut open and damaged.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry.
I kept passing out, and it's me of all people for this to happen to too. I kept fighting, passing out, and coming to, and just thinking, where the sorry, and then it's
Oh, you're
where
okay.
the hell am I? Am I back in South Africa? Because after that situation, things seem to escalate. So I think if you're going to put hurt on people, people are going to get pissed. So
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think that's a natural reaction, right? I mean, you start spraying people that are literally walking through with signs. And of course, I mean, I'm sure people are saying, I'm sure people were saying sometimes, vulgar things towards the police, but the whole point is for you to still be able to keep some type of order without causing harm and bullying, and just, causing that type of harm on people. And, I've seen a lot of pictures of different results of people after getting, rubber bullets. I mean, I've seen some people with their eyes taken out, permanent scars. I mean, it is ridiculous. And like people say, yeah. And like you said, I mean, being that close to you, I mean, a couple feet away is intentional. I mean, that's intentional. And I don't think that
totally. I saw it in his eye. I saw he wanted to get the hurt on me, and they did. They hurt me. They hurt me bad. I ended up losing a percentage of my left testicle that couldn't be saved, and so. It's embarrassing, I don't want to be here talking about, my private parts and losing it. And, but, it's at the end of the day, this is, we need to address police brutality. We need to deconstruct and understand what institutionalized racism is, as blacks and whites and brown people across this country, so that we can all unpack this, and so that we can all understand this, and so that we can all be better and heal as humans and understand how we can better get along. And if we don't want to get along, we don't have to get along, but at least treat your fellow human with the respect that you would be expected in return, so.
Sure. I have a question for you. What do you think is missing? What do you think is missing in regards to people being able to get that connection when I, as a Black woman, say, hey, this is my issue here in America, and then the person I'm talking to who happens to be white cannot get that connection of what do you think is missing?
Yeah, I think it's got a lot to do with, and it's so hard at the moment, especially with this corona pandemic, where now we people in this country have already had their shields up and their defenses up already. Now with corona, it's people are going to have even more shields and more defenses up. But I think it's being open to understanding things about different cultures.
Yeah.
And why does a sheikh wear his turban? Why does a I don't know, those are some examples, and then just have a conversation about it and not be scared to have a conversation about it.
Yes, I think that's a major part, is being able to have that conversation, and on both sides of it. If someone approaches me, for me to be open enough to allow them to start that, initiate that conversation, and then also on the other side of it, for them to initiate it. And us not be afraid of our differences, and to celebrate them more, and to, like you said, understand.
Yeah, if it's okay for us to have our differences. We don't always have to agree, but
Yeah.
let's at least treat everybody with the way that we want to be treated. Well, why not? And if you don't want to, just walk in the other direction. But please don't teach your children racism. I don't care what household you're growing up in, because that's just going to create even more pain and anger. And there's so much pain and anger going on in this world at the moment.
Yeah. Do you feel like, for yourself, being taught that, and it being so indoctrinated into you, in the school system, was there a lot for you to unpack with that? I mean, were you open to the other culture, or other, Black people in South Africa? Were you open to it because of what you were taught, or closed off at first? I'm just curious.
Well, no, all the time I was pretty much open to it, because because of Lizzie, and because of my parents and their morals and the way they lived their lives.
So your parents didn't teach that, even though you had to go through school.
No.
That seems like that would be so conflicting, because as a parent, to not believe in that, but knowing that your child is being indoctrinated with that, seems like that would be so conflicting.
Yeah, my parents chose to send me to a school called a Waldorf school, because they didn't want me to go to a government school, because they knew that the government. My parents were part of a bohemian crowd, if I could.
Oh, okay.
And they sent me to a Waldorf school, which happened to be the first multiracial school in Pretoria, and my parents, suffered for that, because then they were later on they were targeted by the security police. And
oh, wow.
You can actually read about it in the book, but it's the reason why I ended up going to a government school is because that school didn't have any sport, and I loved playing rugby. And I love running over people, and I love physical contact, and so So I just enjoyed sport, so that's why I went, or try run over people. Sometimes they run over me.
Well, this has been amazing for me, because I've always been so interested in, of course, Nelson Mandela and his fight, and his, journey has always been very interesting to me. And I've just always been I've always admired him and his work. His wife as well. She did some different things.
Yeah.
She did some different things. That's a whole nother.
Yeah, that's a whole nother one. She was our lioness.
Yes.
But one man's terrorist, another man's freedom fighter, and that lady was a freedom fighter.
Yes.
She was fiery, and there's still really good work that goes on through the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and through Samuel Tung, who runs it. And there's a lot of stuff that's still going on through his legacy. That's so exciting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, of the success of our bestseller in South Africa, we are developing a television series. So hopefully,
Oh, wow.
hopefully we'll see this on TV one day.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So, but it's been interesting to write these stories in a different way. So yeah.
So do you already have who you want to play you in the TV, the younger you?
Wow. You're gonna set me up there for failure. So I'm gonna
just start thinking about who you might want to have play you to
yeah.
No, that's amazing. I wish you.
Yeah, I've got to figure that out because it's got to be somebody in his early 20s, because I was in my early 20s. I was a youngster, but I like O'Shea Jackson. He's awesome. I think he's fantastic to play. Maybe General Veery. He's incredible. And then Atandwa Khani, who was the prince in the Black Panther.
Oh yeah.
He's originally from South Africa.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Do you know Atandwa? He's such a good dude.
I didn't know he was okay. Wow.
Yeah, no, his dad is John Carney. His dad is our Sidney Poitier.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. No, I did not know that.
That's why he's such a good actor, because it's in the genes.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. Well, I look forward to you guys having the show, and I think that's amazing. I put your book up here again because I want people to support it. When can people look for it here in the States?
Sure. I don't think it's. I only think it's out in the States in December or something. So I'm not even sure, and I'm sorry to bum people out like this by it not being available, kind of thing. But
yeah, no, that's okay.
If they message me, maybe I can make a plan and get a copy to them.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll try puzzle, but check me out on Instagram. I'm very active on there, and
have your ad up there.
Yeah, and and then I also want to just give a shout out to Emaki for introducing me to you, and to Miss Tanya, who's just such a smart, courageous, incredible lady. So yeah.
It's a lot of warriors being built right now. People that didn't know that they were are kind of surfacing right now. So it's been amazing to watch these last couple of months.
Yeah. The cream's going to rise to the top, and vote. We've got to get Agent Orange out of here. Uhamba Ukaya.
Well,
pass this on to my people in South Africa, and they'll know what I'm saying.
They don't know what you're saying. You have to tell me what it is later.
Yeah. I'm just saying you need to go.
Awesome, Brad. I really appreciate you for taking the time today to come here. It's been great. You sharing your story as much as you can, and I really do encourage people to support your GoFundMe, and help you out with that. And I wish you well with all of that.
Thank you.
In regards to your legal. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been great. We have to talk more. And definitely once I can get my hands on the book, I will read it and give a review and kind of talk about it and kind of, look at some of the stories. So
yeah. And let's fight for humanity and kindness, everybody out there. And it's
so important.
It just takes one little action from you, and there might be a domino effect. So, and I just want to thank all the veterans and everybody that puts their lives on the line. And
for sure,
shout out to the MK veterans. Amandla Awe.
Oh, awesome. I have to do some translation. Oh, we have some people that are just saying thank you. Yeah, no, this was great. Thank you so much.
Aaron, yeah. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Well, you have a great rest of your evening, and again, I wish you well in everything with the show, the book, the GoFundMe, and just continual healing. I wish that for you, for mentally and emotionally. So,
and thank you for breaking bread, and thank you for what you're doing here. It's such a beautiful platform for people to come and have conversations and just to get it out. You know, it's
we have to talk about it, right?
we totally have to talk about it because we're not psychic. We don't know what we're thinking.
Exactly.
So, let's just put some good light into this world, like MLK said. You know.
Yes, yes. Chase out the darkness. Well, thank you so much again. I appreciate you. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Cheers.
Take care. Oh, wow. That was awesome. I really enjoyed that conversation. I'm so thankful for Brad for coming on. And again, like he stated, for E. Mackey, that kind of introduced us to each other. And E. Mackey is doing some great work. He is working on a book called Lift Every Voice. And it is, he has actually traveled all over the nation, capturing all the protests and different things that's been going on all over the world to kind of make a history book about this time. So that's awesome as well. So I wish him best with that. And also, Brad, thank you so much again. You guys, when the book comes out later in the year, get it, support it. I'm really curious to read it. So again, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you all. You guys have a great evening. Bye.